Corporate practices and worker abuse, the hidden truth behind big business. Explore the realities of corporate practices and worker abuse, uncovering hidden stories and the impact on employees in today's business world. Corporate practices and worker abuse, what's really going on? Hey, let me tell you what's been on my mind lately. The way some big companies operate when it comes to their employees. I mean, we often hear about corporate success stories and how businesses are driving the economy, but behind the shiny headlines, there's a darker side. Worker abuse disguised as business as usual. It's kind of wild when you think about it. So here's the lowdown. Many corporations, especially huge ones, have been accused of mistreating their workers in subtle and not so subtle ways. This can range from underpaying employees to forcing them to work crazy long hours without fair compensation. And it's not just a bad boss problem. It's often baked into the entire business model. For example, remember when we talked about the pharmaceutical industry? It's not just about pharmaceutical profits, which are massive, but also about how the companies behind those profits sometimes put pressure on workers in labs, warehouses, or even factories that manufacture medical supplies. Employees may face stressful environments, unrealistic deadlines, or conditions that simply aren't safe. Often, these companies keep a tight lid on any complaints or whistleblowing to make sure it doesn't mess with their bottom line. It's frustrating because this isn't just isolated to one sector. Retail chains, tech companies, and even delivery services have all been called out for similar practices. A lot of workers feel disposable, like they're just cogs in a machine rather than people who deserve respect and fair treatment. This kind of treatment leads to high turnover rates, employee burnout, and frankly, a pretty toxic workplace culture that nobody benefits from, except maybe the CEOs. Some corporations have developed really crafty ways to avoid responsibility. For instance, by using subcontractors or temporary workers, they manage to keep a buffer between themselves and labor abuses. This makes it hard to hold the actual company accountable. And when employees try to speak up, some of them face retaliation, or, at best, untrue allegations aimed at discrediting their claims. It's a complex mess for sure. Now, you might be wondering how government policies fit into all this. Sometimes it feels like there's some sort of government conspiracy to keep things the way they are, where regulations are weak or enforcement is lax. Sure, there are laws intended to protect workers, but the gaps and loopholes are plentiful, and corporate lobbying is powerful. The cycle continues, and workers bear the brunt. One of the saddest parts is watching the human impact. Behind every story about worker abuse, there's a real person, someone struggling to make ends meet, dealing with stress, and maybe even facing health problems from their workplace. And this is where public awareness really matters. When we talk about these issues, support fair labor standards, and pressure companies to be transparent, change becomes possible. If you're intrigued by stories that explore these kinds of complicated human and corporate dramas, I highly recommend checking out The Ultimate Frame by Andrew M. Semple. It's a thrilling novel that dives into corporate intrigue, personal battles, and the gray areas where morality gets blurry. It's the kind of book that stays with you long after you finish it. Seriously, discovering a novel like this can give you a fresh perspective on what's happening behind the scenes in the corporate world, wrapped in a gripping story. So, if you're ready to get hooked on a page-turner that reflects some of these real-world struggles through fiction, check out The Ultimate Frame. It's not just entertainment, but an eye-opener. At the end of the day, whether it's about worker abuse or the controversial areas of corporate practices, talking about it keeps the conversation alive. We can't just sit back and accept the status quo, especially when the stakes are so high for everyday people. And hey, if you're ever curious about how the corporate world operates behind the scenes, just remember the stories you hear in gripping novels and the real accounts from employees everywhere. Thanks for listening to my little rant. It's one of those topics that's important but doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves. Let's keep the conversation going.